professional. Meherwan, I have a starting question. Just, we have other things, but this is, because we're in Mandali Hall here on September 25th, 2012. So often when we'd be here with Erich, he would say, not harshly, but he'd say like, you're putting your feet out to the Lord, that's disrespectful. Or if, let's say, if I had like a little water bottle, and let's say if you're talking, that, you're drinking here, that's disrespectful. So I'm just curious that, let's say, Meher Baba, who was so open, that, let's say, to the men and women Mandali, he said, just be natural. If you got gas, just pass the gas, don't hold it in. So, and yet, this thing of like, let's say, keeping feet out, or if you drank water, your voice got a little hoarse, that's somehow disrespectful. It seems a little incongruous with the just being natural, especially older people, their knees are creaky, it's not easy to do that. It's not a world-changing question, but what do you think about that?
When we sat before him, naturally he had that regard for his status, So, although he wanted us to be free and natural, there had to be some limit, Yes. And that was in each one of us like that. We felt like that we needed to restrain ourselves, so that we didn't put our feet out to him. We tried to be natural in other ways, not stare at him, not give him particular attention, to discuss things when he would ask. But all the while, that in the background we had that we have to be respectful about it.
Right.
Yeah.
But how about, let's say, Erich?
So,
maybe, let's say, if there was 20 letters to read, your voice gets hoarse. Would he just, let's say, he wouldn't even have a glass of water there, just to clear the throat in order for the work to proceed and Baba to hear it clearly. It seems that would have been, this was like an office. You hear the correspondence and
he would be sitting here with a pile of letters, just reading away, and Baba would be listening, and when he would give some comment or replies, he would be noting down in short, and it continued. He didn't sound hoarse to me.
Okay.
He was quite clear till the end. It didn't go on for hours and hours. It went on for about an hour or so. So Baba would listen attentively. At the same time, you could see that he was also doing his work, because his fingers constantly kept moving, So you could feel that simultaneously with him attending to what was going on, there were other things that were happening that we couldn't see it, but he was on all levels. We felt that.
Yes. So earlier when you said there's the human side of God that the Mandali saw, and then there's his divinity, but there's also the human side of the disciples, and let's say some of them at the end game in the late 60s, they're old people, could have their prostate problem. What if somebody needed to go pee? What do they have the liberty to just get up and go?
They would say, Baba, put a
gesture,
middle finger up, and he would say, go. Some who couldn't restrain themselves. But there weren't many like that when I was sitting there.
Yeah.
And I used to come once in a year
In
or a
February.
month, and felt free to be with him. Sometimes my nails would be very big and I would start doing this, and Pendu noticed it. He says, "You are manicuring your nails here." I remember that. Yeah. See I behaved, just doing this to wear off the nails.
Yeah, yeah.
So he tells me, "Good, you're doing this,"
Yeah, nice,
and I
nice.
stopped
Yeah,
doing
nice.
it.
You're going to a beauty shop over there.
He was sitting before Baba. He
Yeah.
sort of reminded me.
But everybody would have, like, let's say your knee starts paining, you might want to just do a little bit, like, oh, it's, like getting stiff, or
Yeah.
the body has its own creaks, and just, thoughts wander. You're sitting in front of...
My knees are aching now, I'm doing this.
Uh-huh.
That's how we did it. I wasn't doing it because I was young,
Yeah, you're a young guy still, then, wow.
but the old people were doing that.
Meherwan, would he ever notice that somebody was uncomfortable and ask them to stand up or ask them to
No,
do anything?
he just
No,
let
nothing.
them be,
No.
because he was free with us. If they felt uncomfortable, they could get his permission and leave or go for some work or anything. Yeah.
So, Meherwan, that was
It
sort
was
of a
quite
warm-up
It
question.
was quite informal.
This is just,
Yeah.
I said this to you before. This is from Sri Meher Baba, Questions and Answers, and it's interesting because we want to universalize what it is to follow Baba and stuff. And here is Baba talking about a certain individual way that we have to find the path. So the question that was given to Baba, and I'm reading it as is. Which is the right way to attain wider consciousness? Do religions help or hinder spiritual development? That is the question. And the answer is what Baba gave, and they say here that, who was it that did a little bit of editing here? Let me just get edited by Herbert Davies. So let's say whatever Baba gave, just... in this format, Herbert Davy is given some editing credit. But the answer is, from Baba, no general rule, see, I need water, no general rule or process can be laid down for the attainment of the ultimate reality, or as you term it, wider consciousness. Every individual has got to work out his or her own salvation. And for that end, he himself has to create and choose the path which is mostly determined by the total effect or momentum of impressions, called sanskaras in Sanskrit, which are acquired in a previous life. The panaceas the world hears about, the pseudo-religions for the guidance of humanity, do not go far towards solving the problem. As time goes by, the founder, our avatar, the founder, the one who supplied the motive force is relegated more and more into the background of time and obscurity. The aftermath of his manifestation, in the aftermath of his manifestation, usually a religion or an organization comes up, and it gradually loses its glamour and attractiveness. Finally, a mental revolt against the old order of things arises, and with it is felt a thirst for the way, the truth, and the life. This thirst or demand has to be met, and will be met. So, our Baba, just in some ways, over here, is telling us to create your own path, and follow that need of that thirst, and not necessarily the compliance to any kind of order, system, or group belief, but find your own salvation or the path to your own truth. So in whatever is that balance of today of finding our own truth and being in harmony with society, group, organization, what ideas, comments? How would you field that question of our creating our own story and yet being part of another story?
Yeah, this was meant for, as I said, public in general. But for those who have come into close contact with him, they don't have to worry about all this. Baba said he takes over when people get into his direct fold. You don't have to worry about it. So, in fact, in later years, some people came in Guruprasad and they asked exactly the same question. What should they do for their spiritual salvation? So Baba gave a very good reply. He says, all I want, he first said that I am Paramatma, I am the only one, and I don't give instructions of this kind to anyone. Why should I? When I come here, I say time and again, just love God. And that's the only message I always give when I come here. Just love God. And people make a religion out of it. They, instead of loving God, they start making rites, rituals, ceremonies, and establish a religion on just these two words, love God. Mm-hmm. And then, in my name, they start waging crusades and wars. But they think that their point of view is right, others are wrong. And particular way only they feel that they should behave. So I don't want to give anything. All I say is love God, and how you love, I leave it to you. That's not my lookout. My message is just love God. So that's what he said to the people there. And then he said, love God. I am God in human form. Love me. I am here for the expression of this. The focus for you.
Right.
And that's what I've been saying time and again. And people make all sorts of conjectures and form a religion. And as he said, it loses its charm and splendor, which was in the beginning. And then Baba is relegated to the background each time. That's what it constantly happens time and again.
But as you said, can I just ask you that you said that when you come into his fold, like you literally came into his fold in 1930 when you're born, and you're still in his fold. A lot of the people who are now, and definitely everybody who's going to come from now, whether they consider themselves in his fold, it's after he dropped his physical body. That body is no longer there. So, do you consider that those who come after he died, dropped the body, are in the same fold?
Yeah.
How do you define the fold?
Yeah, because he said that for a period of 100 years or something, I will be, as it were, physically in your midst. He said that. And he had said that about each avatar. When he drops his physical form, he is there as if he is physically around for the next 75 to 100 years or something. That's what he has mentioned.
Yeah.
And that after that period, this begins to fade. So we still have that period.
So you're saying this is the grace period, although as the Avatar, and he gives us the book God Speaks, and in 1962, which Bob Fredericks is making this film about the East-West Gathering, it's going to be the 50th anniversary. On the stage, for some reason, he had the chart of the 4 journeys, which is a very esoteric thing that most people probably have no clue about it, just Baba wanted it on the stage, but in that he describes perfect masters, but the Avatar, who is also in the 10th state of God, that when they drop their physical bodies, the gross, subtle, mental bodies released, that, let's say, the Avatar has an office, let's say in his description. He goes, that office is always his, he'll come back. The perfect masters never come back. But that he has no contact after dropping the physical body, which then is correlated to the subtle and mental, that it is not possible to have contact with this illusion without having that body as an intermediary bridge.
Yeah, but the grace period is there that he mentioned.
No. How would you say that grace period in your own mind? I know you don't know, but how can that grace period of specifically God as Paramatma is in touch with everything? So whether through the perfect masters, the 56 realized
That's
beings.
beyond our understanding, but that's what he said. So we take it at his word and say that you're still in that
enjoy
period.
his grace period because that's available.
So make the most of it.
Yeah.
Love him, try to love him. Ask for his help to love him. That's why he's given that prayer. Beloved God, help us all.
To love you more and more, and still yet more, till we become worthy of you.
And help us all to hold fast to Baba's Daaman. Baba's Daaman. He's brought his person into it.
To the very end.
And how do you hold on to his Daaman? He says, holding on to my Daaman is to obey me. Yeah, that's what he said. How do you hold on to my Daaman?
Yeah.
The holding on to my Daaman means obey me.
Yeah.
Or how do you obey him? So he's given his wishes for posterity. Yeah. Carry on your worldly duties and responsibilities very earnestly and sincerely, but at the same time feel that all I do this for is for Baba's sake. Don't get attached to it. Be truthful in your lives. Stick to the truth because God is infinite honesty.
Right.
So don't try to deceive others. Instead you could deceive yourself to help others. So these are the guidelines he has left and we have to follow that. If you follow that and you obey him, you are loving him. These are the ways to love him.
This is loving God.
And so on. And other things that if you feel happy, feel Baba is making you feel happy. And be happy.
Yeah.
When you feel sad, be sad, but at the same time feel that it is Baba who wants me to be sad, so I'm sad. Thus, keep yourself constantly focused on him.
Remembrance as a path. Remembrance of him. You're attaching yourself somehow. Even in an imaginary way, it's attaching yourself to that reality which is freeing of the bondage of illusion.
Exactly. Yeah.
But in the discourses, everything that he says, almost every chapter ends with, but in the end, even in this thing, he says, you need the grace of the perfect master. At that time he didn't put it or the avatar, but you need the grace of the perfect master to release you. You can't do it on your own. You could do these sort of intermediary steps that lead you there, but in the end, that infinite abyss cannot be
That's
crossed.
what is making you approach to the state where His grace will descend. His grace is always flowing, but the receptivity is not there. And how to create the receptivity, how to create that vacuum within you. These are the steps to clean yourself up.
That's right.
Start obeying Him.
That's right.
So until you are sufficiently hollow for His grace to pour in. So these are the means.
But the other day when we were talking and we said something like, let's say, in the journey of 8.4 million lifetimes you may have access to, you may be around when between 300, depending on 700 or 1400 years, 300 to 600,000 avatars will come and go. So let's say here, some of this group of people sitting around now could have been Christians, Muslims, Zoroastrians, Jews, just whatever, and now are sitting on this carpet in Mandali Hall as Baba lovers. But at some point something happens, let's say 700 years, a different advent, that it's just like Meher Baba saying, you know, what mother wouldn't want to give her child fresh Quaker oats, that we are now the advent of the physical form of Meher Baba that has ended, and we're coming each day, we're receding from this advent and coming closer to fresh Quaker oats being in our midst. Or if somebody is ready to buy, it's very unlikely, there's only 5 perfect masters and they got a small circle, so if, let's say, if they got 60, 70 people out of 7 billion people, it's very unlikely that you're going to be sitting, but somebody does, 60 or 70 do get to sit there. So what do you think that, let's say, just openly, when, like, we're loyal to the story of Meher Baba right now, but each one of us, like in a previous life, there was no Meher Baba. We were somehow born into a Christian, Jewish, Mohammedan family, and we got into this fold. That will happen numerous times on this journey, that whatever loyalty to Meher Baba is now, is only in this time frame. It will change to a different story as time moves on. That in a sense, when we say to hang on to His Daaman to the end, we'll be talking to a different picture and a different story in this journey that is the journey of our soul.
As I said, we might have been in His fold several times, and each time we progress more and more towards Him. So who knows in His previous advent what we were and how far we progress. So it's always a progression, as Baba said. It's never a regression.
So you're saying hang on to the avatar, the form or the coat may change, but stay linked to that story of your avataric connection.
Exactly. And He maintains that connection, not we. He is the one who does it. He then brings us more and more closer to Him. It's His love that makes us love Him and obey Him. How can we do it? But of course it requires many births of preparation to come to that stage where we get accepted by Him. Once that has happened, then you cease worrying about anything. Just do one thing, just love Him. That's all He wants, nothing else. But people fret and fume and worry. So they keep on doing that, but they try their best to love Him. Yeah, despite all knowing all this, we still worry, we still have anxieties. Yeah. And it goes on. But inwardly, He is drawing us closer, cleaning us up.
Yeah.
That goes on simultaneously.
Yeah, let me ask you this is really real question from me. I'm not being playful about this. that when he says, love me, you know, like you would tell Erich, kiss me, and Erich is like,
Yeah.
what's this old guy, kiss me, like, you know, he himself, Erich, is like, that's sort of strange. Because he goes, say you love me, and Erich would feel uncomfortable, and I go, what do you mean, Baba's asking you, do you love me, and you can't say no? I go, did you know what love is? He goes, of course I knew. I go, if he asked you, do you love your mother, what would you say? He goes, I'd say I love her. I go, and he's asking you, do you love me? And you can't say it. He goes, no, I couldn't say it. So, because in some ways, he saw, I'm verbalizing this, that he saw it as his need, like, you know, like a needy old man, like kiss me, tell me you love me, that he saw it as his need. But today, you're sitting here, I'm just saying, when he says, just love me, if there was a percentage, like the whole pie, we got a pie chart, 100% is that pie, what percentage is him saying, love me for his benefit, and what percentage is for our benefit, from your point of view?
He and I, we are both one. So it's no benefit to anybody except himself. Yeah. So it's no use talking this way because he is benefiting himself in us. He is the one who has to go through all this, and he is the one who's telling all this. So this is the function that he performs, and we cannot fathom his way.
That's good. That's good. He consciously is loving himself through your unconscious self. Yeah. And that play, that game, only benefits the oneness, and yet it appears as a duality.
It's just oneness, just one existence.
Definitely. Existence, infinite and eternal.
Yeah, that's all. But all this apparent division that we see is not there. For him it's not there. He feels he is the only one. And that's how he does all his action.
Yeah.
Despite all the separateness and all the illusion that is pervading us.
I wondered if you could retell the story of when Baba was in Guruprasad, just prior to Iswat, just prior to the gathering itself, and how tired and exhausted he was, and then the transformation at some point where he came back out and he regained some health and got stronger.
And maybe, Meherwan, from your side also, is he just playing, it's a show, or is he, I can't do it, and then just emerges, is that really like, let's say, bodily adrenaline flow came in and it gave that energy, or is it just a show that he had to put on, especially for his Mandali, to show those two sides?
Baba was both man and God. So as man, he actually was undergoing what he showed to us how that he was undergoing. It was his actual experience, simultaneous, of feeling all low, exhausted, and drained of all energy, not wanting to take any interest. He was genuinely going through that experience because Baba says the avatar actually becomes all this. He goes through all this, literally, physically. When he suffers literally. He suffers the pangs of all bodily pangs, like an ordinary mortal would. So that we have to, and we felt it that way also. Because when he arrived at Guruprasad, he was not feeling well. And when we all gathered together there, I think he came a week before the East-West gathering, and some of the workers used to go there, like I was one of them. So we would be there in the Mandali Hall, adjacent to the main hall. And Baba would come and sit, and he would be giving instructions. But more and more he seemed to be getting disinterested. For instance, he gave us instructions that all of you come here in the morning and be with me for some time, and then you all disperse and start doing your voluntary work. Each one had been allotted their work and they had to do it. So Baba says, you all come, be here, and at lunchtime come back here and for lunch, take your lunch here and then go back and do your work for the rest of the day. And for lunch, I want you to have tea and bun bread. You know what bun?
Bun, yeah.
Sweet bread. So Adi pipes in and says, Baba, can we have maroon bread and butter instead of bun? And he said, when I say bun and tea, why do you say bread and butter? Bread and maroon.
Yeah.
Stick to bun and tea. So he was quite conscious about what he was saying.
Yeah.
But disinterestedly he was telling us all, do this. So we all did that. We came in the afternoon, had a bun and hot tea that was served. It was like being put on the tea, and every individual worker who came during lunch hour took the tea and the bun, ate and went off. Yeah, there wasn't any getting together. Each one, as they found time, they came. All this thing was going on, and every day we would find that Baba was sort of struggling. His health wasn't at all good. So that situation had developed. The Chinese had just started the invasion, and the Cuban Missile Crisis was reaching a crescendo. They had set up missiles in Cuba, the Russians, carrying the atomic warheads, and America gave Cuba time to get these missiles off and send them back to Russia. Russia had supplied these missiles to Cuba. And America threatened Cuba, if you don't agree to our request, we will invade you. And they blockaded Cuba. And a very real crisis was in the offing. The world seemed to be on the brink of a third world war, atomic, because both powers were having atomic weapons, and it was a touch and go affair. And there were concerns whether the Westerners would be able to come from America with this crisis there, and how will they come? But suddenly, a week prior to the East-West gathering or something, the Russians suddenly agreed to remove the missiles, provided that America lifted the blockade and didn't invade Cuba. So the crisis got diffused, and the the blockade was removed. And similarly, when the Chinese were invading from the northeast frontiers, and one of the people from the military, person called Sakre, who was a wing commander in the Air Force, he had come for Baba's Savas, and he was saying, Baba, the Chinese have started their invasion. And Baba just casually remarked that the Chinese will retreat. And he thought to himself, how could this be possible? An invading army, when they start conquering territory, they'll never go back. But he just said, they will go back, just casually. He wasn't even interested in all this. And then later on, as the last days approached, he was getting more and more sort of weak and haggard looking. There was hardly any color on his face. He looked very ill and very indisposed. So all of us wondered how this would go on. And then I think just 2 or 3 days ago or something, and now I can't recollect the time frame, but one day Baba was sitting in the hall, in the Mandali Hall, and was listening to us. And all of a sudden we find that some color was coming back on his face. All that haggard look and all the paleness seemed to be going, and he was looking more and more bright. Then suddenly opened his eyes, looked around all over, and we felt that something is happening. And a sudden change came over him. And he brightened up and he began to take interest in things that were going on. So he's asking Erich, so what has happened? What about this? What about that? And that day we noticed this change. We looked at each other and wondered what is it all about. And then he didn't need assistance to go back. He walked on his own when the time came for him to go. And the sudden change took over. And this is how the approach to the East-West gathering happened, as far as I can recollect. Yeah. And later on, the Chinese troops also started. They declared a universal ceasefire, unilateral ceasefire, Chinese, and their troops began to retreat, just as Baba had said. So sometimes the reporter had come, and during the last days, the public darshan that Baba gave, this reporter was addressing a question to Baba. What do you think about the Chinese aggression on India? And you have been born in India. So he says, since I'm born in India, I will see that ultimately India will be victorious. And there was a big shout of Avatar Mein Baba Ki Jai in the crowd. Yeah.
Was Erich reading that out?
Yeah.
The whole thing, he was announcing the conversation.
Yeah. That fellow asking question and Erich reading out Baba's gestures. By gestures, Baba was saying all this. So,
to everybody.
Yeah, to the whole.
To the microphone.
It was all a public thing, no? All outsiders also had come. So that's how it was.
Did Baba then mention anything afterward about this Cuban Missile Crisis?
Yeah, and then Baba was saying, just before the East-West gathering, Baba said, "You have no idea how hard I had to work to avoid a nuclear war. It was just touch and go, flashpoint, and I had to work very hard to avert it." That's what he said.
But on
And
the
we
other
take
hand,
it as his word.
he also had said when people asked him, like, oh wow, what if something happened, like nuclear devastation, Russia, America, any things like that,
Yeah,
in a
Baba
sense implying what would happen to this earth, and he goes, you don't have to worry about this because for the process of evolution, reincarnation, and involution, there will always be suitable media for that game to play out. So let's say if we look at like any kind of models of what is going to happen in society, it is pretty likely that in some time, it doesn't have to be Israel bombing Iran very soon, but something will happen, that some kind of nuclear devastation will happen where all of humanity, there's no more reading Shakespeare, there's no listening idea of Mirabai, her love songs, there's no Hafiz, there's no Tanzan bringing the rain down with his songs. It's just whatever was this experiment on this planet, it's just gone. And he says, but it's okay, it moves on, life moves on. So in some ways when we look at that he is, figuratively, in the business of removing sanskaras and freeing the Atma to be free. He's not into making one country victorious or somebody's life happy. It's all a game of unveiling the Atma to itself with consciousness. So in some ways it could be seen that all of these stories that we talk about, the Cuban Missile Crisis, the Chinese coming here, all of that is just on our human level, but it's a tempest in a teacup. It's, to us, it seems like a big deal, but in the universal progression of the soul and its freedom, it's just such a small story.
Yeah. As I said, it's again Baba's humanity and his divinity at play. This is the divine play of his goes on from the time of his advent till the dropping of his body. Just like that. Both things go on simultaneously. So when the Cuban crisis was over, Baba said Russia got frightened and retreated. America stood firm. That's the remark he made. I remember that. Yeah. So then,
just one more thing. That in that 62, the East-West Gathering, what we're talking about here, this down period of Baba, because according to Erich, there were several times like that, but it's just like, at least in one, we could call it the Great Depression, where Erich just tells Baba, Baba, we could take anything from you, but not this. You have to come back to life. That this phase that we're describing in the East-West Gathering, where he's forlorn, is that part of that same period where he was like, for over a year, just like...
oh no, this was much earlier.
Yeah.
No, it was not much earlier to the East-West. It was, I think, in 1960 or something, 61. That there was a period when Baba had gone into a sort of a depression. Yeah. And I was around then, that time. And every day Baba would come here in the morning and Dheeraj would be reading out to him. He would take no interest in anything. He just sat there on this chair with his head down like this, and Dheeraj would say all this, and he would ask what reply, and Baba would say, you answer, don't ask him. And this is how those days were passing by. And it was getting worse every day. He was getting more and more into a sort of deep depression. Literally, you could feel that he was undergoing a period of utter depression. He couldn't figure out what was happening. So Dheeraj one day suggested, Baba, why don't you go out for a drive to the lake? It will make you feel good. So Baba didn't respond much. So Dheeraj said it again and said, all right. And he could show Meherwan the pumping station like that. He said, all right. So the car was called and Baba sat on the rear seat by the window. I sat next to him and one or two other Mandali. And we went from here, from the car was brought here, and then in the car we went down the driveway and Baba was just looking disinterestedly here and there. And he happened to look up a bit and he tells me, look how beautiful those hills are. That Gorakhnath's hill was having full sunlight and a shade at one place with clouds. So he was saying how beautiful is that sight. And then that's all. That was the interest he showed. Then we went to the pumping station. There also we just went around and he was showing me. Baba was pointing out, see how they are treating the water from the lake. The lake water would be brought into two huge wells over there, and then there were settling tanks. From the settling tank, the water would be treated with chemicals and dosed and all that. And then there were two big diesel pumps that would pump water from here to Ahmednagar city, because that was the only source of supply for Ahmednagar. So we went to the engine room where these pumps were working. Huge pumps. So there were two pumps. One pump would take a few hours and then the other pump would start working. And that pump would be rested. So he showed all this to me. And then we returned back and then Baba went inside. In the evening, in the evening session, he came out. He was sitting there. Mandali didn't know what to do now. So one day he said, Baba, let's sit out outside for a change of scene. And he led Baba out there. There was no veranda here. Outside, a chair was placed and he sat there and just with his head down on his chest, just sat there. And we all stood around him, not saying anything. Total silence. What to do? And at that time, for the first and only time that I remember, Dheeraj burst out and said, Baba, please stop this now. We can't take this anymore. We don't want realization. We don't want anything. Just please get out of this depression. we can't bear to see you suffer like this anymore. And there was hardly any response from Baba. He just opened his eyes and said, pipe down. Yeah. So it just kept quiet. And so this happened day after day after day. Then I left and Iraj told me to make preparations for Guruprasad. And Baba had sent a circular that time that he would be in seclusion in Guruprasad also. None should come to disturb him, because when he would come, he would give public darshan and all that, but this time nothing. Nobody should come and disturb him. He is very busy in his universal work. So that was how it was. And I had done all the preparations, and when he came, no one was allowed to receive him or anything. Just a few of us were there who were allowed to come. So every day in the morning, same thing would go on. You would just come and sit there and not respond. Then one day, as we were all seated in the morning, and it seemed that he suddenly looked around and he said to Iraj, how about calling some children for a program? I want to meet the children of my lovers in Pune, and I would like to hold a children's program. And he seemed to brighten up a bit, and the color was coming back, and Iraj and all, we noticed the children. And Iraj grabbed at the opportunity. Yes, Baba, we can arrange for a children's program. So he says, but only the children should come, no adults. So he says, Baba, how will they come? They need somebody. All right, just one parent should accompany them. So that's how the children's program was done. And Baba, after that, that depression of the mood of depression passed away. He became bright and cheerful. He was with the children, and he gave them prasad, and they all flocked around him. He was just his usual normal self. And after that, it was all quiet and seclusion for the rest of the stay. But at the end of his stay, Baba declared that for 15 days he would allow the public to, all his lovers from all over the country, to come and have his darshan just for the day. They should come, be with me and go away. If they are prepared to do that, they can come. So circulars were sent out, and a huge gathering took place day after day. For 15 days, Baba was giving darshan, and it was just his usual self. Yeah. So,
Hey Meherwan, short question. This is the end. They're going to ring the bell. 38 years from your birth till Meher Baba died, you saw him, had access to his body. Then 43 years now, he's gone. You have your own inner life and connection to him. That's your real story, which I believe. Which has more charm for you, to live that inner life and connected independently without the body, or to have been connected with him, with his body?
yeah, when his body was there, it was different. There was that personal connection with him. And Baba was making us ready for that. He was giving us all his personal attention and all that. And now we feel and Baba himself was withdrawing more and more towards the end. He was saying in I think 1954 or 58, he said, the time for external links is over now. It's time for internal links to be strengthened. And I want my lovers to keep close to me internally. I'm now withdrawing myself. Very soon I will be dropping my body, so I have to make that final preparation to break my silence. He gave a message like that. Yeah. So that's how we feel, that the time has come for internal links, and we try to keep him in our hearts. We pray to him for help, just as we did in the old days, and life goes on. Yeah. Time for us to depart.
Time to depart.
Yeah.
It is time to depart. Thank you.
Thanks.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.